Tras permanecer algunos días en Boston, viajamos 50 millas al sur hacia la ciudad de Providence, en el estado de Rhode Island, para visitar a Ashanti Alston, un miembro fundador del Partido de las Panteras Negras y ex militante del Ejército de Liberación Negra, quien durante sus 11 años de encarcelamiento se acercó a las ideas anarquistas, desarrollando una filosofía política de base antiautoritaria e identidad revolucionaria, distinguiendo por su llamado a la construcción de una nación negra. Ashanti, muchas gracias por habernos recibido en tu casa. Bienvenido a Sin Fronteras. Cuéntanos, ¿cuáles fueron las primeras experiencias que te involucraron en la actividad revolucionaria?
Well, I'm out of Plainfield, New Jersey. I was born in 1954, so this was during the height of the civil rights movement and into the 60s, the Black Power movement that came out of the civil rights movement. So as a young teenager, like 13, 14 years old, there was a rebellion in my hometown during this rebellion, and it was for like 6 days. But during this 6 days, I saw black people manifest black power. As teenagers, we found out about the Panthers, and from there, we learned more about what a revolution takes. We were a young group, but we were really young. I mean, most of us are teenagers except for maybe 2 or 3 adults. But we were able to establish a Panther office. We was able to establish another office building that was a free clothing program. Also in our hometown, we started a free lunch program. And it was there that we began to see that you could have revolutionary ideas and work amongst people, serving the people's needs, that was actually also raising the people's consciousness about what was wrong with this society. So as Panthers was trying to implement serve the people programs, the police was framing them, arresting them on all kind of what we call bogus charges. With the FBI program, which we didn't know the full extent, but it was called the counterintelligence program. We didn't know the full extent, but it was creating such a paranoia within the Panther Party that we were beginning to be suspicious of each other, and a lot of arguments, a lot of infighting, to the point where there was actually a split. So the government, with the police and the media, were able to separate us from the people. And then when they started to come after us, they was able to capture a lot of us. When it became difficult to work above ground in the communities, decided that we were going to go underground and join the ranks of the Black Liberation Army. One of the points of the Black Panther Party, one of the rules was that you couldn't join any army other than the Black Liberation Army, which was that arm of the black community that would defend the black community and help promote that struggle for liberation.
Tras tu paso por prisión, tu perspectiva política fue acercándose al anarquismo. ¿Nos podrías explicar un poco más cómo se produjo este cambio?
One of my comrades, Sundiata Akoli, who has been in prison now for 40 years, he would say, turn that prison into a university. And for us, who are now Black Liberation Army soldiers, political prisoners of war, we was reading inside the prisons. If we could get literature in, we would read it. Or we would find that there was political prisoners in there before us who left all kind of literature. I happened to get my hands on some books on critical theory that was giving me an understanding of authoritarianism. I'm also reading feminism. I'm also reading radical psychology. And all of them is now giving me these different lenses to look at what we were trying to do, what we did, and give me some different ways of thinking about what went wrong and what we could have done better. What was happening in the process, though, is that I'm moving further and further away from the Marxism, Leninism, the Maoism, and I feel like I'm moving away from a certain kind of nationalism. But what happens when I get out is that I'm looking now for anarchist groups to get a practical idea of it. And one of the groups that existed pretty strong back then was called Love and Rage. When I saw how they had their meetings, when I saw the style that they worked, then I began to understand more about how anarchist principles operated in practice. And it was the only groups that I saw dealing with issues like that around race and sex beyond class was the anarchists. At least they were talking about it. I'm not saying they were perfect, but I just appreciated the fact that they was putting it on the table, trying to make attempts to deal with the internal oppression that we sometimes act out on each other.
Las corrientes más clásicas, revolucionarias, tanto anarquistas, marxistas, han concentrado el foco del conflicto en la lucha de clases. Y nosotros sabemos que tú tienes una perspectiva distinta. ¿Nos podrías explicar un poco más la crítica que tú tienes hasta esta visión revolucionaria?
Okay. In this country, there's always been these problems with activists in general, revolutionaries also, who, whether they're Marxists or anarchists, and white, there's been problems in that they tend to interpret their ism from a purely European perspective. The anarchism that myself and others in APOC, comes out of our experiences here with white supremacy. But a perfect example of like how racism infiltrates our movement is like if you take the Occupy Wall Street movement. It starts off with a bang. And from all reports, it seemed like it's decentralized, it's horizontal, it's all these new words that says it's kind of anarchist. But it shows you that even with those things, this basically white-led movement was excluding people of color. You cannot include Native folks, you cannot include Latino folks, you cannot include black folks unless we're right in your face. And then when we're in your face, you still won't give up your positions of privilege. You will get out there, you will organize, you will do all of this, but we don't have your resources and we don't have your skin. So when you go get arrested, you're going to get out soon. You're going to go back to them privileged families. And if we get arrested, it may be a whole different story. We have not been able to rely on white movement folks to back us, to get our back, to respect us, what they may call identity struggles. We telling them that don't make us Americans, don't make us workers. We are African people. We are, if you can't get anything, we're people of African descent who was brought here in chains, and if you can't deal with that reality, then we're probably going to have a problem working together. If you can't deal with what this country did on the backs of Turtle Island, then we're probably going to have problems working together. If you think it's just about being Americans who want to change America and not bring it to an end, we're probably not going to be able to work together. So the anarchists of color would have some pretty sharp differences with other folks, even with the white anarchists.
Ashanti, muchas gracias por tu tiempo y no sé si quieres decirle algo a las personas que están viendo Sin Fronteras. Esta es la oportunidad.
Thank you. And I thank you for even coming here to Providence while you're here in the United States to do this. I mean, I'm really honored. The Zapatistas say, we can create a world where many worlds exist. It's a great vision, So we have those type of dreams that can sustain us and make all this worthwhile. Don't worry about death. We're all gonna die, but how we live our lives to that point is what's really important. So join, get involved, remember our political prisoners, but know that we can win.